of Stargirl. This one is Hourman and Dr. Mid-Nite. And this episode started very, very aggressive right out the gate. It actually takes us back 9 years ago when the original Hourman and his wife, I guess because, well, we learned in like the first episode, I believe it was the pilot, it was either the first or the second episode, where Pat had said that after the JSA was destroyed, killed by the Injustice Society, that Hourman was actually the only surviving member, and both he and his wife, ended up going all over the world trying to track down the Injustice Society, and they tracked him to Blue Valley, and then they ended up dead. So this actually shows us that sequence. It shows us where, I guess, when the Injustice Society found out where they were and who they were, and they like their family was marked for death, as they say in Harry Potter. I guess like our man found out, that the Injustice Society was coming for him. So both he and his wife, like, they quickly like packed up their stuff, they put it in a car. The wife, she called her brother to come out to the house that they were staying in. The brother shows up, and then they're just like, "Hey, listen, here's $50,000. We want you. This house is in your name. We want you to stay in this house and raise our son and pretend that he's your own son." They even changed his last name from Tyler to Harris. So so of course the brother was not feeling that. He was not feeling that at all, because he was just like, "I don't know how to raise a kid," and blah blah blah. And they were just like, "Can you just do it for us?" And then, before they left, Rex Tyler, he went to his son Rick, and then he told his son, he was just like, "Hey, take after my car," because apparently our man had a yellow Mustang, and he told his son, he was like, "Yo, take care of my car." He was like, "The car is special, just like you are." And I'm just like, what an odd thing to say. So apparently there is something going on with this car. So then, so they kiss their son goodbye. Both our man and his wife, they get in another car, and they drive off. They barely get 2 miles down the road, and as they're trying to drive away, because the wife was just like, she's like, "Oh, like, I'm worried." And then Rex had said, he was like, "Well, the Injustice Society doesn't know about our son. Like, they don't know that he exists, so he should be safe." And as soon as they say that, you hear the footsteps coming in the background, like you hear the roar, and it ends up being Solomon Grundy. Solomon Grundy. So the Injustice Society, I guess they unleashed Solomon Grundy to go after the Tyler family. Solomon Grundy shows up out of nowhere. He punches the car, and as he punches the car spins out of control, and it goes crashing into a tree. And that's how both Rex Tyler and his wife, passed away. So now the brother has been raising the son Rick up in the farm, or wherever the hell wherever they were. So, but Rick's kind of like, here we are, like I said, we're 9 years later, like the kid's like 16, 17 years old, and he's got an attitude problem. He's actually working on his dad's car. He's trying to fix his dad's car to get him up and running. His uncle has been a complete and utter douchebag to him throughout his entire existence. It's blatantly obvious that the uncle is like, the fact that, because as far as like the uncle is concerned, he gave up his life to raise this kid in Blue Valley, so he doesn't even like his nephew. And like I said, he's a complete jerk to his nephew, and he obviously resents his nephew for the whole thing. Rick had ordered a part, like a car part, to use to fix his dad's old Mustang, and then his uncle when the part got delivered, his uncle took it and sold it to somebody. And then he was even telling Rick, he's just like, "Yeah, I sold it. How do you think I pay for the electricity?" And blah blah, because he doesn't have a job. And then Rick got mad, and he was like, "What you gonna do, punk?" It's like, step up and get beat down. So yeah, so his uncle's a grade A asshole. So now we go back to Courtney's house. Courtney, because again, like, remember, Courtney stole all the injustice paraphernalia, and she's giving it out. She wakes up in the morning. Her mom comes into her room, and then thanks to the dog like went in the closet, took her suit, and almost dragged the suit out in front of her mom. So Courtney's whole thing is like, all right, I got to get all this stuff out of the house, because my mom might go through my stuff, or the dog might, find something and end up showing my mom, and then I got some explaining to do, and I don't want to explain nothing. So she takes all the stuff with her to school, except the Dr. Mid-Nite glasses. She accidentally forgot the Dr. Mid-Nite glasses, and then the dog snatched them up and started running around the house with them. Courtney and Pat end up getting into a conversation because, he's doing the detective work, and after what happened with the magician's whole entire family. Pat even tells Courtney, he's just like, hey, listen, the magician, like your friend that passed away, his dad was part of the Injustice Society, and now his entire family's dead. And so Pat was just like, yo, you're 100% right. They're all here. He was like, the entire Justice Society is here. We just got to find out who's who. And then Courtney thought about it. She was just like, well, did one of them play the violin? And then he was like, yeah, the fiddler. And I'm just like, that's a stupid name. And then she was just like, well, the principal is the fiddler because, we saw her, in the hospital. She was playing the fiddle, in front of in front of Brainwave. And then he was just like, first of all, the fiddler was a dude. And, and when Pat said that, I was kind of disappointed when Pat said that because it's been 9 years. People have kids now. Like, people have, like, if the violin was the tool of evil and the power didn't come from the person, as long as you have the violin, you could be the fiddler. So the fact that he even said that and didn't even say, well, the original fiddler was a guy, but if you saw a woman playing the fiddle in front of Brainwave, then maybe that's like his daughter or maybe his wife or something, like, his aunt or something, something like that. Pat just burst that whole thing off, and I thought that was weird. So now, but he's gonna still look into it. Like, he's gonna continue to look into the whole situation. So now Courtney goes to school. And she's talking to Yolanda, and about trying to find the next members, try to put the band together. Beth is following them. She's stalking them. She's walking behind them. She's listening to their whole conversation because, again, in the last episode, Beth saw both of them in costume climbing up the hospital building, calling each other by their real names. So Beth put two and two together, and Beth knows who they are. While Yolanda and Courtney were talking about who the next recruits could be, one of the names that came up was Artemis Croc. And I was like, oh shit. Artemis from, they done bust out Artemis. So as soon as they bust out Artemis and they showed us that the Asian girl, the one that was supposed to be like the best in sports or whatever, once they showed us that she was Artemis, I was like, well, I was right when I said that the guy who, like the Crusher, the guy who was trying to get Pat to join the gym so they can get totally buff, he's Sportsmaster. So that dude, the Crusher is Sportsmaster. His daughter is Artemis, which means hopefully there's a Cheshire, So that's I guess that would make the mom the Huntress if they end up going that route. But that's cool. So I'm like, all right, so we got Artemis. So clearly she's not going to be a villain. And it's only a matter of time before the whole Sportsmaster Artemis thing even comes to play. So yeah, but that was a nice little nod. That's a nice little nod drop. So so then after that, the chubby dude that Courtney mom worked for, he was because we know he's a member of the Injustice Society now, so he was in the theater that he was trying to destroy, by the way. He was in the theater doing some shady business. Some guy gave him something. He paid the guy for his services and gave him some chocolate, and he was just like, all right, here, take your money and get about my face. So, and I say, and at that point, I'm still trying to figure out, like, yo, who the hell is this dude? Because again, he looks like a wizard, and he ended up not being like the magician. So at that point in the show, I was like, yo, who is this dude? So, but I said, but he did his evil exchange, and then and then we moved on. So now Courtney and Pat, they're in the car together, assumably coming home from school. Pat's car ended up having some car trouble. He was trying to fix it. And then Rick shows up, Hourman's son. He shows up because, again, he's been working on his dad's Mustang, for 9 years. So Rick, he ends up giving Pat some assistance. And because Courtney has all the JSA paraphernalia with her in her bag in the car, when Rick walked up to the car and got close, the hourglass that belonged to Hourman started glowing. So then Courtney was just like, oh, snap. And then she's like, there's a reason why this thing is glowing. So, and then, then Pat had said to Rick, he was like, hey, can you help me push the car to the side of the road? And then Rick was like, nope. And then Rick walked away. No explanation, no nothing. He just bounced. And so then Courtney was just like, hey, Pat, she was like, look, I'm a girl. I can't fix the car. I can't help you push it anyway because I weigh like 30 pounds. So she's like, I'm just going to walk home. So she bounced, which is her way of basically going after Rick. So she rolls up on Rick, and then, she told Rick, like, she ends up like pushing the hourglass in his face, and he's like, yo, what the hell's wrong with you? So and then she was just like, oh, this hourglass was doing some stuff, and then he was just like, nah, you crazy, get about my face. And then he left, then he left it when he went home. Beth ends up showing up at Courtney's house because I guess at this point for Beth, it's like there's no reason for Beth to continue this charade. Like there's no reason to follow her, to keep following her. I guess like the only reason why Beth even followed Courtney was so she can just get like solid confirmation that she was Stargirl. And then once she got that confirmation by listening to them in school, Beth was like, all right, I'm just gonna go to her house and just tell her that I know her secret. So Beth shows up at the house. Obviously Courtney's not there because she's stalking Rick, and plus she's walking home. You know, her mom answers the door. She's talking to her mom, and of course Beth talks too much, so her mom told her to go sit in the living room. Beth's in the living room, and then she sees the damn dog running through the living room with the Hourman glasses in the dog, like in his mouth. So Beth because Beth is nosy, like I just call it what it is. Like Beth is nosy. So you know, Beth ends up chasing the dog upstairs. The dog goes in Courtney's room. Beth takes the goggles from the dog, and the goggles started making like, you know, some frequency like staticky noises. So Beth was just like, why are these goggles making noises? So then she takes the goggles and she puts the goggles on. Now, I don't have a problem with her putting the goggles on because again, there were sounds coming from the goggles. So I get why she put the goggles on. My whole thing is the damn dog just had them goggles in its mouth. So I'm like, at the very least, Beth could, like, we didn't even see her wipe the damn goggles off before she put, so I was just like, ugh. So she puts the goggles on, and then all of a sudden, like all this computer information starts popping up. The goggles start talking because the original Dr. Mid-Nite was a man named Charles who went blind trying to break up a mob gang type situation. And because he went blind, he made these glasses so that he could see, which is amazing for JSA technology back then, where the goggles, he basically has an Iron Man suit without having an actual suit. Like he basically put all that technology inside of a pair of goggles. The goggles can read everything. It can read people's voice patterns. It can tell you when someone's lying. It can scan and analyze like data. It can scan and analyze like particles and dirt and things like that. It has files and information. It can tap into the internet, and like the guy, like she basically walking around with Google in the glass, Google in the goggles. So Beth's freaking out, but at the same time she's like, yo, this is cool. The goggles are telling her everything, like, yo, I know it all, I see it all. And then, you know, she ended up calling the glasses Chuck, you know, and you know, Chuck basically spilled the beans. He was just like, yeah, the Justice Society, Courtney Whitmore, you know, she's Stargirl, and, you know, like the goggles gave her the whole rundown. Courtney comes home. She finds Beth in her room. She's like, Beth, what are you doing in my room? And then she's just like, yo, the goggles are cool, and they're telling me this, and they're telling me that, and they're just like, wow, I know you're Beth's like, I know you're a superhero. I heard you and Yolanda talking, you know, and then the goggles, like Chuck said that you were calling each other by your first name, which is a rookie mistake. And then, you know, and then Courtney starts freaking out because, and this was sad because Courtney came out her mouth. Like, I understand Courtney is kind of like, she was caught by surprise and she was taken aback by the fact that Beth was like in her room and Beth had the glasses. I understand she was taken aback by the fact that Beth knows her secret and she now has to explain all this. But then Courtney had the nerve to come out her mouth and be like, yo, Beth, I don't even know you like that. And I'm just like, you know, and it was the same thing when, like in the previous episode, when the kid died and Courtney was just like, oh, Joey was the only person at school who was a friend to me. And I'm just like, what about? And then Beth even said, Beth was like, bitch, we eat lunch together every single day. She's like, I say hi to you every single day. We sit next to each other. We've had conversation. And, you know, so for be like, I don't know you, like that's jacked up. And then she was like, plus I know your secret, because she was like, I heard what you and Yolanda was saying, you know, on the rooftop. So then Courtney was just like, all right. She's like, all right. She was like, look, Beth. She's like, this is the deal. She was talking to her more calm and basically telling her, she's like, you know, what's happening is pretty dangerous. And she was like, if you're gonna wear those goggles, you know, you got to keep the secret. You got to keep our secret. You got to keep it a secret from everybody, including your parents. And then Beth was like, I don't keep secrets from my parents. And then she's like, nah, you got to keep the secret from your parents. So, you know, so while they were talking, the goggles ended up scanning Courtney's feet, because when Courtney went to go see Rick, he had the dirt from the farm that he stays on her shoes. So then the goggles told Courtney like, yo, that dirt comes from this specific neighborhood. And then Beth was just like, yeah, she's like the only kid that lives in that neighborhood is Rick. So she was like, what were you doing going to see Rick? And then she was just like, well, I went to go see Rick Harris for whatever. And then Beth was just like, well, first of all, Harris isn't even his real name. His real name is Tyler because the goggles told her that his name is Rick Tyler. The goggles even said that they falsified his documents and his records. I was like, damn, So she was just like, yeah, his name is Rick Tyler. And then Courtney was just like Rex Tyler, he was Hourman. So now Courtney's whole thing is, now I know this kid is a legacy son of a superhero, and it made more sense to her now why the hourglass was acting up. So she was just like, all right, we got to go talk to this kid. So they end up scooping up Yolanda, and Beth, Yolanda, and Courtney, they go after Rick. While the three of them are clamoring together to go look for Rick, Pat ends up going to Rick's uncle's house, like to the old Hourman house, because when Pat's car had broke down and Rick was helping Pat like fix the car, Rick had said to him, he was just like, yeah, I've been working on my dad's old car. It was a Mustang. And then, Pat was like, really, that's a rare car. He was like, what color was it? And then he was like, it was yellow. And then Pat was like, aha. So Pat, being suspicious of the whole situation, he goes up to the house to check out the car. Rick had mentioned to Pat that he needed a carburetor in order to get the car to work. So Pat, being a mechanic, he brings him a carburetor as an excuse to make conversation. The uncle is there. He ends up talking to the uncle, and the uncle was just like, yeah, Rick's my son. And Pat knows that's bullshit. Pat was just like, yeah, all right. And then, he was just like, oh, what about the car? I bet you can't wait to take the car for a spin. And the uncle was like, why would I want that piece of junk? And then Pat's like, all right, I know what's going on around here. So he just gave him the carburetor, which he's probably going to sell that too. The uncle's probably going to sell that too. And then he was just like, yo, just tell Rick I came by. And then Pat left. Now I didn't know that Tavon from Black Lightning was on was on Earth too, but that was kind of cool because the actor that plays Tavon on Black Lightning, who got murdered, he ended up popping up on Stargirl as one of the kids that live in the neighborhood. So Rick, in order to get money, because Rick's a high school kid, so he doesn't have a real job. In order to get money, I guess like Rick goes around like doing like party jobs for people, because he brought I'm just gonna call him Tavon. He brought Tavon and some other kids some beer kegs, whatever, and they paid him. They pay him, the kids pay him for it because it was Halloween and everybody was having a party. So. And apparently that translated into Rick was working the party. So he was using the party to distribute alcohol at a high school Halloween party. That's a different story. I guess he was getting paid for that because that's how Rick makes his money. So, so the girls show up, because Beth still has the goggles. And the goggles basically tracked Rick and told everybody where Rick was. They went to the exact house where Rick was. And here's where Yolanda actually disappointed me, because we sat there and watched a whole episode of Yolanda being shamed, being ridiculed, being bullied, being shunned out from society, and being labeled as an outcast. And then she got the nerve to turn to Courtney and be like, how could you let Beth Chapel be Dr. Mid-Nite? And I was like, first of all, you're the last person that got the nerve to say some shit like that about anybody. Based on what you like, based on Yolanda's hit track record, I'm like, somebody need to call her out on that. But she did say that, but then she said like snarkingly, she was just like Beth's superpower is that she talks too much. So I get it. The girl is annoying. She even annoys her own parents. She talks too much. Like she's not even a know-it-all. She's just a chatty catty. Like she talks a lot. I get it. But she got the damn goggles to work, and she's a friendly person. And I'm just saying, Yolanda, that was just bad writing. Like I'm not even gonna blame like character for that. Whoever wrote that was just bad writing. Because you can't have a girl who spent a whole episode getting bullied, basically like bullying or getting shamed, basically shaming somebody else. So hopefully at some point Yolanda and Beth have a conversation about that, where Beth put her in a place, because that was foul. So then Yolanda doesn't want to go in. So when they find out where Rick is, Yolanda doesn't want to go into the party because her ex-boyfriend that put her business out on the streets, he's at the party. And also the mean girl with the silver hair, she's at the party. So Courtney and Beth, they go in looking for Rick. Now Yolanda's ex-boyfriend, Brainwave's son, he's at the party. He's having headaches. He's having like bad like migraines or whatever. His girlfriend comes up to him. She's being a total biatch, and I still think she has superpowers. he gets mad because of what he said, because what she said to him. You know, she basically made a joke about, you know, like his dad being in the hospital. So he got mad and he left. As he was leaving, he was still like holding his head. And then when he leaves the house, Yolanda sees him, and then Yolanda called him a jerk. But Yolanda didn't physically call him a jerk. She called him a jerk in her mind, and he heard that, like he heard her thoughts. So now, and so like I said, boy powers done kicked in now. So Brainwave's son is now becoming the new Brainwave. So that was pretty cool. So because like I said, I mean, we all knew that was going to happen. It was just a matter of when. So the fact that the first time his powers kicks in is hearing his ex-girlfriend call him a jerk, I thought was pretty funny. So so Courtney, so she finds Rick. Rick's in the back. She starts talking to him. They have a little conversation. Like the other girls show up, like Beth's there, Yolanda's there. All three of them are there, and they're trying to talk to Rick about the whole JSA thing. So and then he was just like, so you're Stargirl, you're Wildcat, and then who are you? And then Yolanda's like, oh, she's just temporarily here. And I was just like, really? So they start talking to him. Courtney ends up telling Rick, she's like, yo, listen, your dad was Rex Tyler. He was a superhero. He was Hourman, and he had this hourglass. So he takes the hourglass, and he's like, what does this hunk of junk do? And then Beth was like, well, it gave your dad superpowers for an hour. I didn't know that about Hourman. I did not know that Hourman's superpower was that the hourglass gave him superpowers. It gave him super strength for an hour. And I'm like, that's kind of whack. It's funny because in the whole thing with the hourglass, it makes perfect sense that you have superpowers for the duration of the sands of time running out. So I get that. That actually made perfect sense to me of how the powers worked. It was just the time frame. I was just like, an hour? I was like, that sucks. But an hourglass, hour. So I guess that... I'm just saying, if you can create an hourglass that can give you super strength, I think you have the technology at your disposal to make it last for longer than an hour. But anyway, so he takes the hourglass, he puts it on, he's like, how does it work? And then they're like, you gotta turn it upside down. He turns it upside down, because the hourglass was catered to his father's DNA, which he has his father's DNA within him. So the hourglass worked for him. And then he's just like, holy shit, I got super strength. He starts crushing beer kegs. And then, Courtney was just like, hey, listen, I'm putting a superhero team together to help save the world and fight injustice. And then he was like, yo, I ain't with that shit. And then Courtney was like, well, if you're not going to be about helping people, I can't let you keep the hourglass. And he was like, first of all, it's my dad's hourglass, so by rights it belongs to me. Second of all, I just developed super strength for the next hour, so I don't think you want any Stargirl. So he pushed them aside, and then he got mad and he walked away. So he's walking down the street. He ends up actually seeing his uncle's truck parked in front of a diner. He looks inside the diner, sees his uncle being a douchebag to a waitress, like he was harassing this waitress. So he got mad because he's an angry kid. He's angry about his parents and everything. What happened to his parents, and he doesn't like his uncle. So out of frustration, and since he has the super strength, out of frustration, he bashed his uncle's truck, damn near broke it in half, busted the whole thing up, and then he walked away. So then Pat, now because Pat's the mechanic, the tow truck brought the truck, because I guess like the uncle reported the truck, like damage, whatever. They brought the truck to Pat because apparently Pat's the only mechanic in town. And then when Pat got his hands on the truck, he's looking at the truck and he's just like, all right, the father of the kid who belongs to Hourman, who has super strength for an hour. Now his truck has a big ass punch hole in it. So Pat's just like, I know exactly what's happening, and he's just like, yo, this chick done stole all the Justice Society paraphernalia. So now Pat knows that Courtney stole all the stuff, and then he knows that either the uncle or Rick himself has access to the hourglass. So I like Detective Pat. I like the fact that Courtney's being the reckless one and Pat's actually the one doing the detective work. So that whole dynamic is pretty cool. So then after that, the kids, they go they ended up going to track down Rick. They went to go talk to Rick. And Yolanda was telling Courtney, like, oh, tell Beth not to come. And I'm just like, really? Like, what do you... Like, I honestly hope that Beth and Yolanda get into it at some point during the season. But, so then Courtney was just like, oh, Beth, me... And kudos to Courtney because Courtney basically like told her to stay behind because she can't fight. She doesn't have any superpowers. She doesn't have super strength. All she has is knowledge. So she was just like, "Yo, if things get dangerous, I don't want you out there." So Courtney played it. Courtney played it good. And then Beth felt bad because she was just like, "Wow, nobody likes me." She's like, "I don't have friends," but she didn't say that. But she kind of just like And then like the goggles even told her, he was like, "Why don't you go home?" And then she was like, "Because there's nobody at home, for me to talk to or whatever." And then she was basically having a conversation with the damn goggles, and that works out perfectly for Beth's character because up until now, like her parents were her best friends, and she didn't actually have like real friends. So if Beth ends up getting shunned out of society, she's gonna end up making friends with the damn goggles. And when she was talking to the goggles, she was like, I understand Rick's pain because his parents died in a car accident, and that has to be traumatizing. And then the goggles were like, accident? Like, they ain't dying no accident. So the goggles told Beth the truth. Courtney and Yolanda end up going to talk to Rick. Rick got mad, and then he was just like, look, like, leave me alone. He was like, you don't know how it feels, to be angry all the time and to have this pain. And then Courtney was like, I do, because my dad was Starman, and Starman died, and I never got to know my dad, this, that, and the third. He was just like, yeah, but your dad. He's like, but your dad died, as a superhero. My dad died in a random car accident. And then Beth showed up. I'm glad she showed up. She showed up and she was just like, nah, bro. She was just like, it wasn't an accident. Your parents were actually set up by the Injustice Society. And then Beth ended up, because the goggles, they can do like X-ray vision, they can do like infrared, they can do projectiles. So the goggles ended up projecting, since they were in the area. I don't know how the goggles got a hold of this foot. I don't know how the goggles recreated that whole situation, but the goggles basically, I guess, scanned the area and record, and they put out like a thermal image of how the accident happened, like a 3D holographic of how the accident happened, and it showed his parents' car coming down the block and then getting attacked by Solomon Grundy, and nobody really reacted to Solomon Grundy, which I thought was weird. I mean, Beth was just like, oh yeah, it got attacked by something named Solomon Grundy, and nobody was just like freaked out by that. So, and then it showed the accident and then how his parents crashed. So now Rick is pissed. So now Rick is just like, so Courtney told him, she was just like, yo, my dad, was killed by the Injustice Society too. We're on the same side. We should work together to take these bastards down. And then, and so we can get justice for the JSA. And then Rick was just like, yo, I'll work with you. I'll team up with you. But you can kiss my ass with justice. He was like, I'm here for revenge. like I'm coming for that. He's gonna be on a murder rampage. He's gonna be on a I won't rest until the Injustice Society is dead type thing. Like that's what he's on. And you can't blame him. You can't blame him for that. So Rick's out for revenge. And then that concluded their whole thing. So then Pat, he ended up going back to the house. He ended up going into Courtney's room. And then while he was in Courtney's room, the Green Lantern started glowing because she left the Green Lantern in the closet. Because I think besides the pink pen, the Green Lantern is the only thing that's left. And I know for a fact we ain't doing no Green Lantern on no Stargirl. So Pat probably, because Pat has his hands on the lantern now, Pat's probably going to take the lantern and take it back to the JSA before she can give somebody the lantern. And plus the person will need a ring anyway, so like the lantern's useless without a ring anyway. But I don't know about that pen though. So so Pat knows everything, and he's obviously going to confront her about all this in the next episode. And then in the final scene, remember what I said earlier that the chubby dude with the gray beard, he had paid this guy to do like some illegal thing for him. After the guy had did the job for him, the chubby dude came back, and he basically like killed the guy. He murdered the guy who did the job for him, I guess eliminating all the witnesses. He killed the guy, and he also killed the two guys that person was with. So he killed 3 people. And there was one dude, a black dude, because he was like, because I guess like there was it was like some psychic wave that was like taking over their brain and was going to like kill them. And there was one dude that was kind of resisting. And then when the camera panned, we saw the principal playing the violin. She was playing the violin, and the violin was like scrambling the brains of the the 3 guys. And like I said, it killed the first 2, but the third guy was kind of resisting. And then the chubby dude showed up, and he was like, wow, you're actually resisting the violin. He's just like, that's a shame, because now I'm going to have to shoot you. The boy pulled out a gun, came out of his wrist, and he shot the dude. So now I'm just like, so the chubby dude is the fiddler. and I guess maybe old age, or maybe his hand is fake because there was like there was a mechanism that shot a gun out of his wrist, which enabled him to fire it. So maybe he has a fake arm, maybe he has a fake wrist, maybe he has a fake hand, like a robot hand or something, which is why he can maybe he has arthritis, and which is why he can no longer play the fiddle. And he's become the mastermind now, and his wife has become the new fiddler, taken up for her husband. And the two of them have a kid together, and I'm pretty sure he's evil too. So that was how the episode ended. So this is getting good. This is getting good. Like the gang's coming together, like the crew's coming together. The gang's all here. More villains are starting to pop up. Like I said, the brainwave kid, he popping up. The fiddler is the principal, and we saw Icicle Jr. Now we got Beth gonna keep them damn goggles. So so whether Yolanda like it or not. And like I said, so I'm definitely interested. I don't know what's happening next week. I did not see the coming attractions for next week's episode yet, but like I said, they I was gonna watch the show anyway, but they definitely got me hooked. So leave a comment. Let me know who you think the next person's going to be that's going to end up getting, because I think we're all done with the heroes, but let me know who the next villain's going to be that reveals themselves. Let me know what dynamics you think are going to happen. Do you think Yolanda and Beth end up butting heads or not? Like what's going on, and how long before Rick ends up going rogue? Like how long before, Courtney forms her new team, and as soon as Rick sees Solomon Grundy, he just breaks off, goes rogue, and then goes after Solomon and ruins the whole thing. So again, definitely leave a comment, like and or subscribe. Take care, everybody. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. coming up next. And for Stargirl, for next time, I'm out this